yearly test in conjunction with the continuous parametric monitoring.
Thank you.
Okay, the 15 minutes have been used up. Thank you very much for testifying. I'm sorry, that was... No. You were getting granted 15 minutes.
15 minutes for everyone. I wouldn't have taken everyone's 15 minutes.
Wasn't the rule last night.
Mr. Chairman, not to contradict your discussion and your finding, but as far as the applicant is concerned, if there are other questions that don't get into continually repetitive, repeating the same thing over and over again, we're prepared to stay here as long as we need to so that the questions get answered. And I don't mean to dictate the procedure to, but again, there should be no basis for repetitive nature of same question over and over again, but if there are in fact different, new, novel questions that are relevant to the testimony, as far as the applicant is concerned, we have no objection to you expanding the time period.
Is your witness, you indicated to me your witness has to be because of the death of the man.
Yeah, if he could have half an hour of questions more, I'm not trying to tell the board what to do, you run the show, but from our perspective, if there were half an hour more of questions, and then he could take off, we would appreciate it, so that the public could get a chance, and everyone could ask maybe a few questions.
All right, that will accommodate his schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'll open it up for a half an hour of questions.
Hi, my name is Lee Rozicki, R-O-Z-Y-C-K-I, 56 Puddingstone Way, Lopatcong. Can you show on the map what, if anything, is going to be enclosed?
That's not his area, that's the piece.
Oh no, I thought he was with
There'll
operations.
be an engineer that's going to be testifying shortly about what's enclosed.
All right, so that's the engineer?
Like, so I would want your question.
The natural gas pipes, that's an engineer question?
What was that?
The natural gas pipes, engineer question?
You can ask him about the natural gas that's burning into the plant for emissions.
Oh, okay.
He's testifying as air quality expert.
Oh, I thought
So that you should really, other experts are going to be testifying. You can save those questions for later.
Okay. Let me just see if I have it in your form then. The Greenwich attorney answered that. I'll answer that. No, then I'll wait. Sorry for the engineer.
Okay.
Paul Garibaldi.
Hi. I have one question for Ms. Angle. Just a quick question about the pressure in the bag house. You said that was a parameter that they used to measure.
Yes, the pressure drop.
And who measures that, and how often is that measured?
That would be the operator of the plant, and that has to be measured continuously with a gauge, and then the information from that gauge, I think it has to be recorded every day.
Okay, I just wanted that cleared up. Thank you. And another concern that I had, I don't know if you're familiar with this, any of you, but and I'm not even sure if it's factual, but it has come to my attention that there was some sort of resolution passed by Warren County that, for lack of a better word, put an end to any more air quality, air permits. I think it may have had something to do with the power plant on the other side of the river generating air quality hazards to us here in Warren County. So how does that, if you know anything about that, how does that pertain to this air quality permit, and how come they're allowing another air quality permit?
I don't believe that Warren County has the authority to do that, and I'm not familiar state of New Jersey are issued only by the state agency. There's regional offices that help the NJDEP enforce the air permit, but the authority to issue air permits rests solely with the NJDEP, so I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. All right. Are you familiar with that at all?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
that's
you.
by the state, not with nothing else.
Richard Merker, 99 Mazie Avenue, Lopatcong. M-E-R-K-E-R. I have a few questions for you. What are the possible hazardous emissions that could come from this plant?
So we evaluated, starting from a list of 241 compounds.
If you could just name them for me. Possible hazardous emissions.
So the one that's in the permit is polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are required to be reported and listed in the permit.
Okay. And I take it you're not a health expert as to what the effects that would be on children?
Well, I had to do an analysis, and I used the tool that Susan referenced that the state provides. It's very conservative. It's called the level 1 screening, and evaluate the risk over a 70-year exposure at the property line to somebody who lived adjacent to the house.
So I'm sorry, just, are you an expert? Can you tell me what the effects that...
You let him answer our question, let him leave.
The question, if you're going to give a challenge him,
I'm just asking a simple question.
That's right, and he's trying to answer it.
Okay, it's a simple answer. I do know what the effects are, or I don't know what the effects are.
No, he has to explain what his answer is.
I don't want to waste a whole lot of time. So simple answers is all I need.
Mr. Chairman,
Do you want knowledge?
Mr. Chairman, the question was asked, you can't take it back. Let the witness answer the question. If he's not happy with the answer, he shouldn't have asked the question. I would ask that the witness be allowed to answer the question. Thank you.
all I'm asking to do is allow him to
No
allow the
problem.
witness to answer.
I am not. Thank you.
I'm not sure your name, sir, on the end. I'm sorry, Mr. Campbell. You said you worked for the DEP?
That's correct.
Okay.
Work
Past tense. Have the limits of emissions for these asphalt plants decreased over the years, or is it exactly the same as it was in '94? In '94? He said they started in '94 is when they started making these tests. So my question is, has the admissible limits or emission limits decreased since 1994?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Handel on that question.
You just mentioned limits. If you're talking about actual emissions data, I don't have that in front of me, but the regulatory limits have gotten more stringent since 1994, if that answers your question.
Is that a yes, that the
Yes.
limits are decreased?
Yes, the regulatory limits
Do you-
have decreased.
Do you know why?
Because in New Jersey, NJDEP is very aggressive about maintaining and in fact improving its air quality. And so it gets complicated. It gets complicated. They have to meet certain national ambient quality standards. In order to meet those, they regulate industries, and they identify industries that are contributing to different types of pollutants, and they regulate them. And so that is why regulations change over the years. And
When you
one of
say
the-
it's because those emissions affect the health of people in the community?
No, these are national ambient air quality standards. They're set by the EPA, and it's about the health of everyone.
Thank you.
My name is Olszewski, O-L-S-C-H-E-W-S-K-I. Live in Lopatcong, 48J Lane. I'm very happy that you guys are happy with the plant. My main concern is the school and the kids. And I was wondering if there are any studies being done, what the truck traffic and the pollutions are going to be doing close to the school. Not at the plant itself or within the constraints of the fence or at the school where the kids are sitting in the summer with open windows. Has somebody put an effort into checking that out? Diesel fumes, cancer-generating toxins. Did somebody actually do something in that area there, or just the plant itself?
So the requirements of the state are for the plant.
Okay, so nobody. For the board, I hear always the requirements of the state are we ever able to exceed the requirements? Are we ever wanting to do better than the requirements? Is that something which we should work towards? One last question to the health expert or to the air expert. Is there any correlation between respiratory diseases, asthma, in proximity to asphalt plants? Is there any studies out there one can see? Is there anything one could actually look at? Is there any correlation?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, thanks.
Neil here to Sheriff Archman Reiner for the representing the adjacent test. Could you
Speak up a little louder, please.
sure. Could you conduct some of the operations you described at this proposed plant indoor facility rather than an outdoor facility?
I'm not aware of any asphalt plant that's enclosed, as some concrete plants are enclosed.
Could some portions of it be enclosed?
We're in the modern age, almost anything's possible.
Or, for example, the 25, the height of the 25 pile of the sand and the stone, could that be in some kind of an enclosure the way you have salt in a bin? In order to prevent, when there is wind, from that migrating to my client's property.
And like I said, anything's possible.
Have you ever heard of something called scrubbers?
Yes.
What are they?
So they were the precursors to the bag house. So back in the 70s when the first Clean Air Act was promulgated, a lot of the industry employed scrubbers, which is a wet process to wash the particulate out of the airstream. They're not as efficient as a bag house, and the added disadvantage is that it wastes the particulate rather than captures it so that it can be reintroduced into the material.
So the bag houses are much more efficient and state-of-the-art.
Correct.
Great. Glad to hear that. I have just a couple of questions. When were the two board experts retained?
When were they retained?
I'm thrilled that they were retained. I just wanted to know when were they retained?
Oh, I don't have the quote in the
Well, they were retained by the board, correct?
Pardon?
They were retained by the board
Yes, they were.
We were retained approximately 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago? Okay, and,
2.5.
excuse me?
A little more than 2 weeks.
Okay, and that was a decision made at a public board meeting?
Yes,
Okay, and there's a resolution approving the,
it would be in the minutes.
excuse me?
It
It's in the
would be in the
minutes.
minutes.
It's in the minutes, terrific. Can we get written reports from both of the experts?
Okay. So we made part of the record, you can copy it.
They're going to submit written reports?
Yes.
Oh, perfect, thank you very much, we appreciate that. And the decision of the board will not be made until they prepared their reports and submitted them so that the public can see it?
When you say a decision, what are you referring to?
Excuse me? If there's a decision to be made approving or denying the application, the public would like to see copies of their reports prior to that.
No.
I would say, Mr. Chairman, we've already heard the testimony of the experts, presumably they had, and the attorneys had a chance to cross-examine them. I don't think the board has to wait. We've heard what they have to say. If they have to put it in writing, it's not going to change it. We've all been here. The board will have to act. I don't think you have to wait till it's in writing and you have to read it. We all heard it.
My client and the public is entitled to a
The
request.
public is entitled to hear it. Not every expert gives a written report.
No,
We
well,
heard
let's say
the
I'm
oral
entitled to a
report.
request,
You can make the request. Sure.
Absolutely.
And it's the board's decision what it does.
And can you just, you talked about state-of-the-art facilities, as this one is going to be. Can you describe a state-of-the-art facility that's in New Jersey right now? Something close?
I'm sorry.
Can you describe a state-of-the-art facility that's located in New Jersey?
So a comparable plant might be the new drum plant at Stabola's Bridgewater Quarry, right at 22 and 287. It's
Stabola's?
Stabola contractor. It's a counterflow dryer, which means that the burner's on one end and the cold, wet material is introduced at the opposite end. The dryer dries the material, heats it to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly, and then in that same dryer, it adds the asphalt cement, mixes it, and discharges it for conveying to storage for loading into a silo. So it's kind of a unitized plant where almost all of the mixing, drying, and heating is done in one chamber that is maintained under negative pressure that minimizes fugitive emissions.
So while your client's not the operator of that facility, if we drove over there and we're outside the property line, we should not smell odors.
Correct.
Because nothing leaves the property line, which I still find hard to believe, but that's the case. Thank you very much.
Mark Corral, 37 Meadowview Drive. Mark Corral, 37 Meadowview, G-U-R-A-L. I want to get into some of the numbers. I got the DEP application through Information Act request. For CO emissions, would you consider CO dangerous?
In high concentrations, certainly.
Okay. According to the permit application with the DEP, the numbers I'm getting off the permit are 14.85 tons of CO per year will be emitted by this facility. Does that sound about right?
Probably.
Do you consider NOx dangerous?
No. When it mixes with hydrocarbons.
Which are present at the site?
Yeah, but it takes time for that reaction to occur in the presence of sunlight to form ozone, which is a respiratory irritant.
And a big problem in New Jersey, correct?
Right, which is why the state has been ratcheting down performance for these plants since 1994, which was a prior question. So the limit for a plant in 1994 for nitrogen oxide was 200 parts per million corrected for dilution. The requirement for this plant is at most 75 parts per million corrected for dilution. But then the state has reserved the authority to reduce that even more below the 75 ppm limit following the results of their stack test. So part of the state-of-the-art requirement for this plant is to have control technology installed that reduces nitrogen oxide emissions in the anticipation of being able to achieve less than 75 ppm, demonstrate with the stack test, and then incorporate those performance requirements in the revised permit. So they're really being held to the gun on limiting the nitrogen oxide emissions.
The permit also states that the plant will emit SO2 5.6 tons per year. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, but so the 5.6 tons per year SO2 is from the fuel oil combustion, which is an emergency backup fuel during natural gas curtailment. So it really is kind of a worst case scenario. It's only going to be emitted in the event that natural gas isn't available.
Which is permitted to be 500 hours a year.
Maximum, but it's only if natural gas is. So first criteria, they can't get gas. Then they're only burning oil for 500 hours.
Can you explain to the public what PM10 means?
So we spoke about dust here. You know, it's what gets on your windshield. PM10, though, is kind of a separate category. It's condensable particulate matter that has the ability to be pulled deeper into the respiratory system than a coarse particulate would and dust. So we're required to, limit our emissions on it and test to verify that we're in compliance with those limits.
So children with asthma or people with respiratory problems could have problems with PM10?
I'm not sure about that. Maybe Susan knows better. It's my understanding that it actually takes even finer material, PM 2.5, to aggravate asthma.
There's a lot of talking about how wonderful the bag house is and how it's going to capture all the dust. Why does the permit allow 11 tons per year of PM10 to be emitted from this facility?
Well, if you remember, I mentioned that PM10 is a condensable particulate. So it's actually in a vapor phase when it moves through the bag house. And it doesn't condense until it comes out and it's released into the atmosphere where it condenses.
So it goes right through the bag?
It's a gas. As it moves through the plant, it's in a gaseous phase and we don't have the ability to filter it.
So the bag house will not collect any gaseous emissions?
Correct. It's designed
strictly for dust, particulate?
Yes.
Can you explain what TSP is?
Those are the filterable particulates that the bag house does
capture, and that's 7.59 tons, so some does get through. Even the bigger stuff does get through.
Yeah, again, you have to remember, these are worst case.
This is a worst case world we're living in. We've heard from 3 experts, and none of you have talked about volatile organics. Can you explain what those are?
Well, we did talk about them in different terms. So I would have referred to them as total hydrocarbons.
It's a big family.
VOCs. So the state regulates VOCs, but they measure THCs. So again, back in '94, we were talking about permit limits and ratcheting down. The facility would have allowed 250 ppm on total hydrocarbons, VOCs. This permit is limited to 125 ppm VOCs to cut the allowable in half. And being a state-of-the-art facility, many of these plants come in well below that. This plant might be around 50 ppm. It would be my expectation that this plant will perform somewhere around 50 to 60 ppm on the VOCs.
Would you agree that VOCs, many of them are dangerous to health?
No. No, that's a separate category. So those are your HAPs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. It's a small subset that are hazardous. This is a pretty, I don't know if innocuous is the right term for it, but this is the larger population that's not really hazardous to health.
Okay, the permit allows 5.2 tons per year of VOC emissions. Can you list 8 to 10 of those? What are they? What makes up? It's a general category. It says VOCs. Can you list 8 or 10 of those pollutants that will be in that family?
I can't. They're going to be like oils. They're going to be like the fumes that might come off the oil vent on your car.
Just name a few of them.
I'm not an organic chemist. I don't know.
Benzene?
No.
Toluene?
No.
Formaldehyde?
No. Those are the hazardous.
There's an EPA report, I believe the gentleman from Greenwich has that lists all those.
Identify what you're referring to, please.
I have a report here from the EPA dated December 2000, EPA report EPA-454/R-00-019, entitled Hot Mix Asphalt Plants Emission Assessment Report. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know if we're talking about a comparable plant that burns natural gas with these qualities that are described by the witness or some other plant. I'd like to know what type of plant this report specifically refers to, and I'd like the witness to be asked, is this comparable to what we're proposing here, to see if it's apples and apples, not apples and oranges.
What kind of plan is it referring to?
So if I may, I'm familiar with that.
Okay.
All right, and I used that report in the preparation of this airplane.
It's a very good report.
Okay, well, it has its weaknesses. We might not go there. So those are a subset that are the hazardous air pollutants. And I think I made reference to having to start with a list of 241 hazardous air pollutants that are identified by the state. And so we went through an analysis, and we used not only that data, but we also went and stack tested other similar facilities. We actually stack tested the Bound drum plant that kind of I raised up as a model state-of-the-art plant for a prior question, so that we could quantify ourselves on a state-of-the-art plant in New Jersey what these emissions could be expected to be. And then we tabulated them for this facility, knowing how many tons a year they were going to make, so we could quantify what our expected release were of these compounds, and then measure them against the state's bar. So, you know, they have a bar. We don't want everybody to having to jump through a lot of hoops unnecessarily if they're not impacting the risks, the health of the community and the neighbors. And so the state has established, as Susan testified, a very rigorous, conservative process to evaluate these compounds and the risk that they confer to the neighbors.
We realize that, but we're trying to establish that these pollutants will be in our air. They're not there now, they will be.
Oh, no, they are there now. Every combustion,
Yeah, but we're going to be adding to them.
every combustion source adds those same compounds. Those are byproducts of combustion. This school has a natural gas boiler. It's emitting those same compounds.
It's not in the same volumes. It doesn't burn the same amount of fuel, it doesn't have the same amount of flow.
Are you testifying as an expert?
No, I'm a citizen.
Well, then don't make testimony of that sort.
Sorry. Apologize.
Are you advising that?
Is the boiler that this school using the same size? Is the combustion source in this school the same size as the combustion source of this asphalt plant we use?
It is not, no.
So the emissions will be different. Let's move on. Another area that we didn't talk a lot with these experts is fugitive emissions. The permit talks about stack emissions, but it also lists another source of emissions, and that's the drum. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, go on, I don't.
Well, would you agree that the drum is the source of emissions?
Well, the stack is the emission point. Right. So the permit lists two emission points.
Right.
One emission point is the dryer stack, which is the exhaust from the baghouse. And then the other is kind of a umbrella category called fugitives that encompasses those transfer points from the conveyors and the cold feed bins and the material transfer.
Valves, fittings. There will be fugitive emissions coming off all areas of the plant, correct?
Correct.
Okay. These fugitive emissions are not quantified, we can't measure them.
Well, no, they are quantified. We did have to go through a procedure to quantify them using the best available information that is provided actually by EPA. It's probably, it's not in that document that you had, but a similar document by EPA. Does the same quantification of fugitive emissions as they do for hazardous air pollutants. And we used them for all the transfer points and added them up and included them in the 5.9 ton per year particulate. That was not just the stack emissions, but all the fugitive emissions were included in that total.
And that includes the dump trucks leaving the facility?
No, we're talking about the plant here.
Well, no, so the dump trucks are part of the plant. Even though they leave, they're still part of the plant. They're taking finished product, which has fugitive emissions, has VOCs, coming off of it, and they're leaving and going through the community. They're part of the plant. Yes or no?
Sorry, I thought we were talking about the dryer and the fugitive emissions from the plant. I didn't realize
That's what you were talking about.
Oh, thanks.
So will there be future emissions on the truck? Let's move to the trucks.
No. Well, the DEP permitting process does not consider the trucks as being fugitive emission sources.
Okay. But there will be fugitive emissions off the trucks.
You know, I think we're splitting hairs.
Yes or no?
I can't say. I don't know that the definition of fugitive emissions include what might be released by a truck.
Okay. If I put a pile of asphalt on the floor here, will there be fugitive emissions? Yes or no?
Let's use the word fumes. All right?
Odors?
Okay.
Is it fume and odor?
So, odors, I like that term. No, there won't be odors.
Will there be fumes?
You know, there might. I mean, if it's hot, you might see a wisp of faint blue smoke coming up off the fire, yes.
Will there be VOCs? If I took a grab sample of that air, will there be VOCs in it?
Probably, yes.
Okay, so you agree there will be fugitive emissions of VOCs off the trucks?
This is repetitive. We talked
Okay.
to you with that.
All right.
Repetitive questions.
All right, this facility will have what they call asphalt cement stored,
Yes.
and that's stored at a high temperature.
Well, 300 degrees Fahrenheit.
Water boils at 212, so that's above the boiling point of water, so that's pretty hot, just to give people an idea how hot that is.
Yes.
So it'll be continually heated.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any byproducts when that liquid asphalt is heated to that temperature? Does it create anything? Any gases?
So, there's de minimis, just as there are in your gas tank in your car. And if you had a fuel tank in your home, there are de minimis quantities and fumes coming off that. Call them fugitive emissions, if you will. So the state has set a bar. They're saying, what do we need to worry about? We certainly don't have enough money to worry about everybody and everything. So we have to set a bar that we can afford. So the AC tanks are below that bar. They're there with the 250-gallon fuel tank in your cellar. They're there with the backup fuel tank for this school. The emissions from the AC tanks are so low that the state has said, don't even bother telling us about it.
Okay. I don't think that answered my question. With the heating of the asphalt cement, isn't hydrogen sulfide created?
There may be some quantity of it released. I don't know the exact factor to quantify.
Is hydrogen sulfide dangerous? It is.
Okay.
Are you testifying again, sir?
Can I read from a document?
No.
Can you read this document?
Sir, where did the document come from?
It comes from the OSHA. It's a H2S safety sheet, fact sheet.
And where did you obtain it?
The internet.
No, I can't read it.
OSHA. Did you submit, or did the applicant submit a material safety data sheet for the asphalt cement that we use at this facility?
No.
Why not?
It's not required.
Don't you think the public should have some kind of a record of what will be stored in the at least 30,000 gallons, up to 70 in this facility?
They will. I mean, there is the whole public right to know law that will require that, and they'll be required to maintain notebooks of that on site, not only for the public's use, but for their employees' safety. I'm not really up on this area of it, but I know that they have to provide that information to the local fire department so that they know how to address events at the site where they can happen. So this information is made available at the point in time when it's appropriate.
Okay. Do you know what the odor of H2S gas is?
I'm sorry?
What the odor, what it smells like, H2S gas?
Isn't that the rotten egg smell?
Yes, it's a rotten egg smell. So when the residents drive through Strikers Road and they smell a rotten egg smell, then you know that there's H2S in the air. Is that a good indicator?
Okay.
And H2S for the public, I'm making a statement, I'll probably get asked to leave. It's very dangerous. I suggest you all do research on it.
We need a half-hour time, so probably no more questions on this witness.
Mark, I only have.
I'm sorry, sir. We established the half-hour rule.
It would not take more, I swear, it will not take more than 1 minute of your time. And what I want to say, all I want to
Sir, are you an attorney?
I want to clarify.
I'm asking this gentleman, are you an attorney? Are you advising him?
No, I wanted to make an objection that I would also be given time as an interested party to cross-examine him on three little points.
No.
There's
We received the time under the
question.
record.
I'm just gonna make a quick
Ask the
statement.
question.
My name is Mark Milat. I'm president of Overlook at Lopatcong. It's right in our backyard. EPA, as you said, as far as the fugitive emissions, that could be stockpiling, that could be the movement of trucks. It's no fact, EPA, 46%.
Are you asking questions?
46%.
Are you asking questions or making
I'm just making a
statements?
statement, 46%.
No, sir, at this point, without order, please sit
I'm
down.
asking a question. Is it true that 46% of people living within a half mile have deteriorating health problems according to the EPA? Is it a fact that asphalt plants, 46% have deteriorating health problems according to the EPA, living within a half mile? They're within elementary schools.
I've not heard anything that resembles
Do
that.
you know that within, do you know that 50%?
Sir, are you asking the question or are you testifying?
Answer the question.
Do you know 56% property loss of those people within a half mile of the asphalt plant?
I'm not a...
That's all I gotta say. It's not good. And fugitive, what you said about fugitive.
Out of order, please take your seat or I'll
Trucks
remove
passing
you.
back and forth. Thank you very much. I'm disgusted and appalled at this.
We have questions for the panel.
You have a half hour, that's the time we agreed upon, and go. Out of order. Mr. Beatty, would you like to call your next witness?
This is not legal. Yeah, this is wrong. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a 5-minute recess for reporter.